Today's story is both shocking and complex, spanning nearly 3 decades in the pursuit of justice. It recounts the tragic murder of a 21-year-old nun in 1995, a case that remained unsolved until December 2023. This is the story of Sister Eliana, which unfolds in the quiet town of Riverton, France in 1995. Like many other Christian areas in France, Riverton was a peaceful place, with churches and convents scattered all around. These places of worship were an important part of life for the people living there. One of the well-known convents in the area was the St. Gregory the Great Convent. It had a hostel where many young women came to study and stay, many of whom were also nuns. Among these women was 21-year-old Sister Eliana, a dedicated young woman who had come to the convent to serve God and help others. Sister Eliana was studying at a pre-degree college, and like any student, she had exams coming up. Determined to do well, she decided to wake up early one morning to get some extra studying done. She set her alarm, went to bed, and woke up around 4 a.m. After greeting a few of her friends in the convent, she sat down to begin her studies. Around that time, she felt the need to take a short break. She left her books and went to the kitchen, possibly to drink some water or splash her face with cold water to stay awake. The next morning, when the other nuns woke up, they noticed something unusual. Sister Eliana was missing. This seemed strange to them. When they went to the kitchen, they found a water bottle with its cap open, water spilled on the floor, and one of Sister Eliana's slippers lying there. But where was Sister Eliana? No one knew. The search became more urgent, and soon they found Sister Eliana's other slipper near the convent's well. And when one of the nuns went near the well and looked inside, she was terrified to see Sister Eliana's lifeless body. The fire department arrived, the police were called, and eventually Sister Eliana's body was pulled out of the well. The nuns and hostel residents were in complete shock. Just the night before, they had shared dinner with her, laughed, made plans for the future, and even got annoyed by her early morning alarm. Now, that same friend was being carried out lifeless from the well. The local police officer, Lieutenant Vincent Moreau, arrived as part of the usual process. After the body was recovered, he wrote a report, called a photographer to take pictures of the scene and the body, and then sent the body for an autopsy. During the autopsy, doctors noticed cuts and bruises, found a head injury, and listed the cause of death as drowning. Even though Sister Eliana had a head injury, the cause of death was still marked as suicide with the possibility of murder. At that time, many people found this explanation hard to believe. Why would Sister Eliana set an alarm just to end her life? The fridge door was left open, the bottle's cap was off, water was spilt, and her slipper was left on the floor. Everything seemed too hurried. The story didn't make sense to people. Many believed that this wasn't a suicide, but a murder. They also felt that someone was trying to cover up the truth, especially because the incident took place inside a convent. Sister Eliana's death took place in a convent where hundreds of girls came to study, learn about religion, and live. Such a tragic event happening in a place like that was very unusual. This incident, along with the suspected cover-up, deeply unsettled the community. An activist named Jacques Duval formed a committee to seek justice. On April 16th, the case was handed over to the crime branch. After a few months of investigation, the crime branch released its report. The case was taken out of the local police's hands and given to the crime branch, which spent months investigating. In the end, they concluded that Sister Eliana's death was a suicide. By then, Sister Eliana had already been buried, and her clothes were destroyed, leaving very little medical evidence behind. However, the case had become a huge topic of discussion in France. The media was full of stories, and people across the country were coming up with their own theories about what had really happened. The nuns were unhappy with how things were going. But there was pressure from the media, from activists, and even from society itself. Naturally, the case was passed to a higher authority. The Central Bureau of Investigation, CBI, took over, and a fresh investigation began. The CBI started with a new approach, looking for fresh clues and talking to old witnesses again. Everything seemed to be moving smoothly, but then something very strange and shocking happened. A CBI officer, Henri Langlois, held a press conference in 1997 and revealed something surprising. He said that he had been under pressure to declare the case a suicide. Because of this, he chose to leave his job almost 9 years before he was supposed to retire. You can imagine the chaos that followed his statement. The case became a big news story again. People couldn't understand why it was getting so confusing. Where was this pressure coming from? Why was the case so difficult to solve? The CBI team continued to investigate for quite some time, even though they didn't have much medical proof. Later, they carried out several dummy tests. They made a doll the same size and weight as Sister Eliana and threw it into the well in different ways. They carefully observed where the doll got injured and compared those injuries to the ones found on Sister Eliana. However, even after these tests, no clear answers came up. So, in 1999, 4 years after the investigation started, a report was submitted. It stated, "We believe this should be treated as a murder case. We tried everything possible to find out who might be responsible for this tragic event, but despite all our efforts, we couldn't get any solid results." 4 years after the incident, despite the efforts of the local police, the crime branch, and now the CBI, the truth about what really happened to Sister Eliana remained elusive. The earlier report was rejected, and a new CBI team was assigned. This new team carried out another investigation, and by 2002, 3 years later, they came to the conclusion that Sister Eliana's death seemed like a murder. The main reason for this conclusion was the medical findings. This time, not just one doctor, but a group of 3 doctors examined the evidence. They found several injuries that were not mentioned in the first post-mortem report. These injuries had been missed earlier. Let's revisit the day of the incident. Several nuns at the convent observed additional injuries on Sister Eliana's body. Lieutenant Moreau, the officer previously mentioned, had called a photographer to document the scene. The photographer carefully examined Sister Eliana's body and captured images revealing injuries that had not been included in the initial report or post-mortem findings. When her body was retrieved, many nuns present also noticed these injuries. They noted several marks that hadn't been included in the original post-mortem report. After 7 years of investigation, it became clear that Sister Eliana did not take her own life. It looked more like a murder, but who did it? The answer would surprise everyone. The CBI admitted, "We know it's a murder, but we still don't know who the killer is." Once again, the court refused to accept this report. Another team was formed, and in 2005, a new investigation was done. Again, it was stated that the killers could not be identified, and once more the court did not accept this report. The activists outside, part of the action committee, were now angry. Many talks and conspiracy theories started popping up. Some media reports suggested that the first investigation was poorly handled. They claimed that Sister Eliana was buried too quickly, her clothes were burned, and even her diary was destroyed. They felt the post-mortem was incomplete and suspected that powerful people were trying to cover this up. Various theories spread quickly across France. How could such a chaotic scene be part of the case? Why did the evidence disappear? Then a new team began investigating again. And in 2007, a shocking revelation came to light. By now, the case had been under investigation for 12 years. There were many witnesses, but some had turned against the case, and others had even died. Many suspects had been questioned, but no solid proof was found against anyone. Then, out of nowhere, a witness stepped forward, offering a key clue to the case. But who was this witness? The witness was none other than a thief, an ordinary, unknown thief from 1995. Could his testimony really be trusted? Surprisingly, not only was this thief's statement taken seriously, but it also changed the entire direction of the case. This man, Paul Renaud, admitted that he had committed thefts around 1995. He used to steal from different places, sell the stolen items, and use the money to feed himself and his family. On March 27th, Paul Renaud went to St. Gregory Convent with the plan to steal. His goal was to climb to the roof of the convent, where there were copper rods and wires meant to protect against lightning, take them, and sell them. He arrived in the dark of night to carry out his theft, but what he saw there was so unusual that it stayed in his mind for years. he noticed someone sneaking onto the campus in the dark, and the presence of that person was very strange. He saw a priest there, Father Martin Dubois. This raised a question. What was a priest doing in the girls' hostel at such a late hour? Paul Renaud claimed he also saw Sister Claire and another priest, Father André Lemoine. This is where things get really creepy. As mentioned earlier, Renaud had a simple way of working. He would steal items from different places and sell them to a scrap dealer. That night, when he witnessed the strange incident, he felt helpless. Renaud, how could he speak up when he was there to commit a crime? The next day, he read about Sister Eliana's death and saw the police's comments about her case. That's when he began to feel that something was truly wrong. He had gone to steal, and if he told anyone about that night, he would have to admit to his own crime. Clear through. Everyone stand down. Paul Renaud did something surprising. He went to the police and told them what he saw that night. Imagine what happened next when they heard his story. The police listened to his account and then arrested him, accusing him of the murder. They created a simple theory. Paul Renaud entered the convent that night to steal. While he was stealing, he ran into a nun. When she screamed, he panicked, killed her, and tossed her body into the well before escaping. Simple. Paul Renaud was held for 58 days, during which he reportedly faced different kinds of torture. He said he was pressured to take the blame for the murder. He claimed he was offered bribes, money, a job, help for his children's schooling, and even a house if he confessed to the crime. His scrap dealer, Jacques Pelletier, was also said to be tortured and pushed to blame Renaud for everything. However, both Paul Renaud and Jacques Pelletier refused to back down. When Renaud wouldn't give in to the lure of money, they threatened him with several false charges. But what made him stand firm against this corrupt system? It was his honesty. Later, throughout this dirty game, Paul Renaud was the one who stood strong in his truth, the same petty thief from before, whom even the court admired. From this point, the case takes a new turn. The CBI now had two main suspects, Father Martin Dubois and Father André Lemoine. In fact, a neighbor who lived near the convent claimed he had seen Father Dubois' scooter parked there. On the night of March 26th, this neighbor went to a nearby shop for tea. When he returned around midnight, he noticed the scooter outside the convent. At the time, he didn't think much of it. However, later, he changed his story, saying, "I said that under pressure." He was one of many witnesses who turned against the case. But hold on. When Paul Renaud told the police about this, they already knew there were some suspects. Why didn't they investigate this further? Why didn't they look into Renaud's account even a little bit? Or was someone telling them to set up Renaud? Renaud was being offered money. Who had enough money to back that? And the biggest question was, if Renaud was telling the truth, what was Father Dubois doing at the convent that night? A rumor started to spread that Father Dubois had told a friend he and Sister Claire from the convent were like a married couple. Even before this, many people had raised similar claims. Some of the nuns in the convent discussed it among themselves, and others outside shared their thoughts too. Finally, in 2008, based on Renaud's statement, the CBI named Father Martin Dubois, Sister Claire, and Father André Lemoine as the main suspects in this murder case. After this, the defense lawyer for the accused tried to undermine witness Renaud by painting him as a professional criminal in court. He brought up about 10 criminal cases against Renaud, most of which had him as the accused. Renaud did not deny his criminal past, which turned the lawyer's argument against him. Even though he admitted to his previous crimes, Renaud stood firm in his testimony, determined to seek justice for Sister Eliana's murder. Because of his statement, Father Martin Dubois, Sister Claire, and Father André Lemoine were all sent to Lyon for narco tests. The doctor in charge of the tests was named Dr. Isabelle Morel. The results of the tests were recorded on 3 CDs, which were then sent to the Riverton Judiciary Court and the French High Court. However, it was later found that the CDs containing the narco test results had been tampered with. Dr. Isabelle Morel was called to explain this issue, but she had been suspended some time earlier, leaving the narco test reports incomplete. Everyone present during the narco tests was questioned. However, everyone claimed that no one had tampered with the CDs. To uncover the truth, the narco test CDs were sent to the Central for Development of Imaging Technology, CDIT. The CDIT analyzed the digital evidence and discovered that the first CD, belonging to Father Martin Dubois, contained a full recording of 32 minutes and 50 seconds, but had been edited more than 30 times. The CD of Father André Lemoyne's test was 40 minutes and 55 seconds long and had been edited 19 times. The last CD was for Sister Claire's narco test, which recorded 18 minutes and 42 seconds and had been edited 23 times. After the tampering incident, the French High Court ordered the CBI to present the original CDs related to the narco tests in court within 10 days. But just a few days later, the original recordings of the narco tests for Father Martin Dubois, Sister Claire, and Father André Lemoyne were shown on a local TV station in France. During the trial repeating the same testimony, Sister Claire was stamped as a scandal. How this broadcast happened and who aired it is still unknown. But the original narco test recordings revealed how Father Dubois and Father Lemoyne committed the murder. According to their narco test recordings, on the morning of March 27, 1995, Sister Eliana woke up at 4 a.m. It was quite warm, so she went from her hostel room to the fridge to get some water. While she was drinking, she heard some noises coming from the kitchen. When Sister Eliana went to check, she found Father Dubois, Father Lemoyne, and Sister Claire in a compromising situation. In that moment, before she could run away, they attacked Sister Eliana with deadly intent. Sister Claire grabbed an axe from the kitchen and hit her on the head, and the post-mortem report confirmed she had head injuries. After that, they dragged her to the well and threw her in to cover up their crime. After this CD was aired, the CBI started questioning all three of them in their office. However, in 2009, all three were released on bail. It was shocking that Father Lemoyne was cleared of any wrongdoing in this case. From 2009 to 2019, many hearings took place. Finally, in 2023, the French High Court sentenced Father Martin Dubois and Sister Claire to life in prison based on the narco test results and Paul Renault's testimony. The court also fined both of them 500 Dubois, €00. Thus, after 28 years, thanks to a thief, one of France's longest-running murder mystery cases was finally solved.